I'm Aleksey Konyakin. I'm a hybrid product marketing manager in CE area. Azure Arc is a part and is a big part of hybrid cloud at Microsoft. And since this Azure Arc area and hybrid area is very wide and with very wide set of scenarios and applications, so today we'll focus on and we'll stick only to one scenario, which is top of mind actually in IT pros, and it is security and governance. Today on our agenda, I will give you a short overview of what Azure Arc is and the variety of different scenarios that it has. Then the majority part of our meetup today will be dedicated to the security and governance capabilities that Azure Arc provides for Arc-enabled infrastructure. We will have a portion of demo, and I will demonstrate on slides examples what security and governance capabilities for Arc resources, Arc-enabled resources. Then we will wrap up with the resources and next steps that I can suggest to you, so to follow up and make first steps with Azure Arc and hybrid. And of course, at the end we will have a Q&A session. So please put your questions into chat. So me or either Frederic, we can address and we will answer you for sure. So let's start first. So why Azure Arc and so what it is. So first of all, at Microsoft we understand how how different, how complex IT environment customer has. We understand that I think most of customers actually at the same time has the on-premise infrastructure and cloud at the same time. And even for cloud, we know that many customers use at the same time more than one cloud if they use it at all. And the majority of customers, as we know, due to the servers, put the multi-cloud into their IT operations strategy. So, and we understand all the challenges that come along together with this situation. So these changes like how to govern and operate across these different environments, how to ensure security across all entire organization, how to meet regulatory requirements or internal requirements, and how to enable innovation, especially in the case when you cannot move to cloud for any reason. So for that case, we in that in mind at Microsoft and Microsoft Azure we have Azure Arc solution. So what Azure Arc is, it is basically Azure Arc is a bridge that we build between Azure and your the customer other environments, whether it is on-premise, multi-cloud, and edge, to bring you all these great capabilities and innovation that Azure have. And I believe all of you are well known with all these capabilities that Azure brings to manage, govern, and secure resources that are running on Azure, like servers, databases, and platform services, development tools and practices that can use on Azure, and platform services like applications, data, and machine learning services. So what Azure provides is ability to bring all these capabilities to your multi-cloud and on-premise environment. And this provides these three main scenarios for Azure Arc. So what exactly Azure Arc is and how does it work? Azure Arc, basically it is not only a product, this is a kind of a set of technologies that I will show you a bit more in details later. That unlocks different hybrid scenarios in a really wide variety of scenarios by extending Azure services and management to any infrastructure. So you can build, you can operate, you can manage all your resources in one consistent way across the entire IT estate. Azure Arc enabled infrastructure enables you to connect your resources which live outside of Azure today and operate them just the way you operate your native Azure resources. And on top of that, you can also bring Azure services to your hybrid and multi-cloud environment by deploying them and run outside of Azure. Now, so we talked about Azure Arc extending the Azure control plane to your existing infrastructure. So now let's talk about what kind of infrastructure services you can bring to Azure Arc. First and foremost, we support Windows Server and Linux machines, operating systems such as SUSE and Red Hat. So as long as the operating system is supported by vendor, it is supported by Azure Arc. You can onboard SQL servers to Azure, and in addition to this governance and inventory capabilities, you can also take advantage of Azure security services and proactive SQL assessments, ensuring that your databases are optimally tuned and you can ensure the optimal performance. And on Arc enabled Kubernetes on the right-hand side. So we support a wide range of distributions, again, offering you that flexibility of choice without forcing you to stick to one single solution, whether it's Azure Kubernetes services on OpenShift or any other. You can use cloud native tools, practices, GitOps configuration, application deployment to one or more clusters at scale. And it provides a really good opportunity, a really good tool to manage your Kubernetes at scale at different environments. So one of the goal, so what we want with Azure Arc is to meet you where you are with your existing investment, which means so you as a developer or an architect, you can get flexibility and convenience with Azure Arc enabled infrastructure to use what you already have and what you already invested in. It doesn't matter where your applications are running. They could be on servers, on bare metal, on virtual machines, on Kubernetes. You can manage all of them across with Azure Arc. If you already have container-based applications, you could easily deploy, secure, monitor all your container deployments with Azure Arc enabled Kubernetes as well. Or you could use Azure Platform services like app services, functions, or data services like SQL Managed Instance for a more managed experience and deploy them like in the cloud and in hybrid and multi-cloud environment from the one single control plane, again, from Azure. But today, we will stick to the only one part of this, which is constant operations, governance, and security capabilities with that overarching all of it. Now, let's have more details, let's have security and governance scenario in more details. So governance and compliance, I would say, is a critical aspect within the cloud operating model. And this is another capability that we have deeply built into Azure, which is like very crucial and critical part of Azure. With Azure policy capabilities, which provide this governance and compliance scenario, you can set some kind of guardrails, which will help you to audit and enforce resource configurations across Azure in scalable manner. And through Azure Arc, your hybrid resources are also integrated into your native policy engine that runs from Azure. So the same Azure service is used to provide these capabilities, so you can use all the same practices that you used to in Azure. Azure policy, in that case, will continually check on the compliance and regulatory state of your system across all your environment, having to string together without having to have custom scripts, let's say. You can also instruct Azure policy to put non-compliant resources to a compliant state through automated remediation. So imagine, since any of your resources, imagine your virtual machines that are running on Edge or in the branch office somewhere, being onboarded in several minutes to Azure Arc. So you can then implement these policies to this machine and automatically make it compliant due to your policy that you set up. So with Azure Arc and Azure policy, you can govern your whole environment with operating practices in consistent and what's more important, repeatable way, regardless where your machines are running. Then another big part of the security, in addition to governance and compliance, Azure also provides security foundation that helps you to strengthen your security score, security posture. And Azure Arc works with Microsoft security products, so you can bring these cloud security operations across your data centers and multi-cloud. So it allows you to assess and strengthen your security policies posture by using Azure with identity management, protection by Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and Microsoft Sentinel. So I know all of you understand. So what Microsoft Azure AD does, it offers a comprehensive identity and access management platform in the cloud, so you can bring this to your resources. With Microsoft Defender for Cloud, you can get continuous assessment of the security state of all your resources across Azure, GCP, AWS, and on-premise. And you can visualize your security state and quickly understand so your security controls, your security posture, and what you can improve right away. It also provides a comprehensive and cloud-native detection and response solution for both for Windows and Linux servers, for containers, serverless workloads, and for SQL servers as well. And finally, everything you can come together with, you can bring together with Microsoft Sentinel, which makes it easy to collect all the security data across your entire hybrid organization, including devices, end devices, users, applications, servers, any cloud, anything, at the one single place. And Azure Sentinel uses the power of machine learning and AI to help you quickly identify real threats and can release you from the burden of traditional CMs by eliminating the need to spend time on manually setting up, maintaining, and scaling this infrastructure, all the rules. And all these capabilities you can simply turn on, right, almost in a minute, if you have onboarded your resources with Azure Arc. Now let's take a look at the security and governance scenario that we just talked about from a customer perspective. Imagine we are working with a large financial organization with thousands of servers deployed in multiple locations across a country or even different countries in the world. They also, let's say, using DevOps practices, which result for them in an unknown number of servers that are connected to the corporate networks, but do not conform to identity and governance requirements. This customer would really need to gain some control of their environment and ensure compliance requirements are met, especially if we assume that this is financial institution, or it may be, let's say, medical institution, any institution or company that faces government requirements. And common and general business requirements would be to have a security posture management and threat protection across entire infrastructure. Then to have an ability to manage a mix of both bare metal, Windows and Linux server, as well as virtual machines across different locations and across different systems and applications. And also, and which is very often, which is a requirement that we face very often, is to enable IT to apply at scale governance security policies across all servers. And now, from this perspective, let's try to see what Azure Arc can do to such customers, and how can we help to meet these requirements and to deal with the challenges that this customer may have. At this slide, I want to show you an architecture of such a customer and how Azure Arc integrates infrastructure that resides across Azure, across on-premises, across Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud Platform in that case. So you can set up unified security management with formerly known Azure Security Center and Azure Defender, which are known today as the Microsoft Defender for Cloud, as well as Azure Sentinel. So through Azure Monitor, agents deployed so natively for the Azure resources, and that may be deployed on the on-premise and multi-cloud resources. You can bring all these resources to this all these capabilities to all these resources. And on the next slide, let's imagine the same organization. So this slide demonstrates how you can put regulatory compliance to your various and different locations that resides in different clouds and on different ways across different countries. So you can put compliance requirement. So you can follow compliance requirements at easy. So imagine you have workloads, resources running in Canada in Google Cloud platform, on Amazon in UK, on-premise on VMware vSphere in United States, and you have a set of other resources that running are on Azure and on Azure Stack HCI, or let's say on Hyper-V virtualization system. And in different countries, you need to comply with different policies. And you need to make all these resources in compliance with this with some regulations, especially in different regulations in different countries, which may be nightmare if you're really dealing with dozens of branches and thousands of servers, different other sources. So you can do it much more easily with Azure Arc and with Azure Policy by again implementing these Azure Arc agents on your resources, onboarding them, and then just treat them like normal Azure resources. Like really, you will see that you just see Arc onboarded resources on your Azure portal, just as the normal Azure virtual machines or Kubernetes. And you have all this metadata you need to understand where are they located, so what are the performance metrics and so on. So you can manage, in that case, policies across all environment by implementing one single policy to all resources. And since you onboarded Azure Arc machines, you can implement automatically remediation and assessment against policies. You can also different policies for different resources that are running on different locations, or for instance for different means for different applications and different IT systems. So all this flexibility, all these capabilities that Azure provides natively for Azure resources can be brought to your on-premise and multi-cloud. Now, with this slide, I want to unpack a bit more on how Azure Arc works. So Azure customers use different tools or experience to connect to the Azure resources, like it is Azure portal or software development kits or other things. So what's happening behind the scenes? That those tools and experience are interacting with the Azure control plane, which is essentially Azure Resource Manager. And every single resource in Azure is connected to this control plane. Azure Resource Manager at its core provides a core set of management capabilities, such as inventory, organization, governance for Azure resources, and which you can see on this slide on the right-hand side. So you have these Azure resources, and you have all these capabilities that you that applies to them with Azure Resource Manager. So let's have an example when you want to create a new resource in Azure. That request is received by the Azure Resource Manager, which then deploys the resource. And once these resources are created, whether it's virtual machine or Kubernetes, you can attach then additional Azure management services such as Azure Monitor or Azure Security Center or Azure Policy, let's say. So with Azure Arc, we just extend this control plane, the Azure Resource Manager, and all the same capabilities. So to others, to the resources outside of Azure. So this involves you deploy an agent on the server or Kubernetes cluster. So that resource can be projected to the Azure Resource Manager, and the Azure Resource Manager will see and treat this resource like any other native Azure resource. Then you can group these resources. You can apply tags to them. You can apply role-based access policies as well, and attach again these managed services such as Azure Monitor, Azure Policy, and Azure Security Center, or Defender for Cloud today. And you will do this absolutely the same way as you would do for Azure resources. So what we want to bring together with this for IT pros, for IT admins, developers, and architects. So Azure Arc can bring consistency and single control plane experience across all resources you have, and implement one single practice and one single skills to manage it. Yeah, I should have clicked 2 more times. Sorry for that. Now, a bit more of Azure Arc architecture. So on the left-hand side, you can see this management interface that you can have. Then you see we have Azure Resource Manager, and we have Azure Resource Providers, Azure Arc Resources Providers for different scenarios, for Kubernetes, for servers, and for data resources. And we have Azure Arc agents deployed on Kubernetes clusters, on SQL servers, and on servers. And we also enable you to continue to use the management tools that you are familiar with, whether it is server admin tools, Kubernetes, cluster management tools, DevOps, or Azure Data Studio, let's say, to manage the data assets. So all the pieces that are highlighted in light blue are the part of Azure Arc solution. And 2 more slides with architecture before we can go to demo. Just quickly, I want to show you what parts of Azure Arc are running on, let's say, on Azure Arc enabled server. So here you would have Azure Arc connected machine agent, which is responsible for configuration paths to Azure. So it collects, it defines the subscription and resource group this resource belongs to. So you may have different service belongs to different resource groups. It stores, it defines Azure region to store metadata. So you can define this, what network option is used for connectivity, whether it's direct or proxy connection, and it stores credentials to onboard this resource to Azure. Then hybrid instance metadata service. It handles identity and metadata sync between Azure and virtual machine. You have guest configuration portion of it, which provides in-guest policy and guest configuration functionality, such as assessing whether machine complies with the required policies or not, and can automatically remediate it. And you have an extension manager, which manages virtual machine extensions, such as Log Analytics agent or Microsoft Monitoring agent, different agent that you need to deploy additional services on top of your virtual machines. And with this, you can install, uninstall, and upgrade these extensions on your virtual machines from Azure Portal, from Azure Control Plane. And all the same applies, all the same portions of solutions are also applied to the Linux machines. Now, just to sum up a little bit, if we remember the situation of our customer with the resources sprawling across different locations, different data centers, that needs to have a single visibility. Let's see what Azure Arc can bring to this customer. So we can give a unified view of the organization's security posture with security score. We can now detect and resolve threats and prioritize different security alerts. We can collect data at cloud across all resources from the users and data devices, all the stuff with Microsoft Sentinel, and immediately investigate threats and response. We can bring universal governance anywhere through Azure policy. We can build in server compliance rules and regulatory compliance rules and have the central compliance view across all servers and enforce self-remediation. So just really automate it. And on top of this, you can also leverage automation that Azure Lighthouse brings by integration with Azure Lighthouse. By the way, Camila, Esther, I don't see chat or Frederic, so if we do have anything, just let me know.
Yeah, I'm challenging people as you speak to ask some question in the chat, but so for the moment it's empty. Really please to ask any question, guys. This is your session, so this is we're here for you, so feel free.
Yes, absolutely, and again, this topic is wide. It is many things that we can cover, but what we really want to cover is what is top of mind for you, what concerns you. If you have anything we should focus on, let us know.
Yeah.
Now, off to the demo session. Frederic, may I ask you to take it away? And
yeah, sure. So I'm part of Microsoft EMEA working on Arc, just to introduce myself. So we wanted to give you a demo. Real-time demo is one option. It could be a little bit complicated. Screenshot is interesting because we have time even to review them later. So where are we now? So we are in the Azure portal, where we usually manage the Azure resources like virtual machine, AKS, or Kubernetes, or any kind of technology that we have in Azure. But as we mentioned, we are talking about hybrid now. So we have servers on-prem, we have servers in Amazon, Google, in some other places, and we want to have a centralized vision of these servers, and we want to be, as good as possible to manage these machines. So what happened even before we land on this slide? As Aleksey said, we went in Azure, we selected the Arc option, we answered a couple of questions, and at the end of the process, 30 seconds, is giving us a script, for example, to enroll a machine. And so what we do, we just remote control that machine that could be on the other side of the planet in, in Amazon. And we just run the script, right? And the script will download the Arc agent. It will then enroll this machine in Azure. And once this machine in Azure is enrolled, you will get what Aleksey said. You have now a bridge between Azure and that machine. And potentially you will do that same, technique in all the machines that you have internally or, on-prem, Amazon, Google, and so on and so on. What is the first result that you get? You will see your new machine as it's enrolled now in the system. You will see that machine appearing in the Azure portal in the same way with the same experience as a normal machine in Azure. So the first benefit of that is for free, for nothing, for just a couple of seconds of work. You will be able to see all your machines, no matter where they are, in one single place, which is Azure. So as you can see on the screenshot, there's different kind of component in Azure right now. And as you can see, some of them you have that circle underneath, for example, this machine. What it means is, and as you can see in the type area, it's a server, right? So far so good, but it's an Azure Arc machine. So what it means is that this machine just appears here. It's a hologram, it's a projection, it's let's say an icon of that machine. But we have created that bridge so we can now see this machine. So the first benefit is this one. The second one I have lost. Yes. Okay. Can you
Sorry.
go to the slide potentially? No, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. I will not touch my mouse, so you will be able to go to.
No, please, please keep it. I just wanted to check chat.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go ahead.
I'm not so sure I have the right to go to the next slide in the interface. It doesn't work. Can you
try?
Yeah, the next slide. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So of course there's no magic. So first of all, we have installed the agent. It has created that bridge between the machine and Azure. And now that it's some sort of Azure machine, the bridge is here. We have a remote control now that we can use, and we can inject some stuff in that remote machine. So in fact, most of the time when we deploy such solution, even before we install the first machine, so what we do is we go in Azure again and we say, okay, for a Arc machine, I would like to have, for example, performance counters, gathered on this machine. I would like to have event logs gathered. I would like to have security features I would like to have inventory and so on and so on. So when we configure these components in Azure, what it means is that you are creating your policy. So it means that now every time a new machine will arrive and will register, automatically they will receive all that kind of configuration automatically. So the big value is here for Arc. As soon as you have created this bridge, it's totally automated. It's policy-driven configuration, if you will. So what happened then? This machine will receive some what we call extensions, some sort of agents and extensions of agents. So as you can see, the second one is the Azure, the Microsoft Monitor agent. So it's the software called Log Analytics or Monitor in Azure. This agent can have an extension that we call the dependency agent, and you will see a little bit later. We'll show you what happens on the network, area. In this demo, we have also deployed Security Center, but as you can see, Arc just create the bridge, and we add on top the different kind of components that we would like to, leverage for that this remote machine. So that's the way it works, right? The channel is here. We can, deploy the agents, and the agent, of course, would gather the information and will send back all the data gathered by the technology, back to Azure. So we can go to the next slide. And now what you see, in fact, you don't see it, as the first hand, but we have selected a machine. You can see on the top left here corner that it's a server, but it's an Azure Arc server. So maybe again on the other side of the planet.
And we have a question as well. I don't know if you can see the questions.
No? Do you want to take the question now, or do you want to take all the question at the end?
I think it's better if we left them at the end.
Okay, so let's go. So let's continue. So what I just said is now we have that new machines arriving in the portal in Azure. So we just click that machine. So the cool thing is that we see the machine and we can see the inside of the machine now the same way as if it was an Azure machine. But we know that it's an Arc machine because in the title here, well, in the subtitles, you can see Arc machine. And this is what is very interesting in Arc is that you will see exactly the same GUI, the same experience, the same option as if it's an Azure machine. So it's very cool. In this example, we went in the update and management section. And what happened is just when this machine arrived in Arc, has been enrolled, it has received a request to analyze the machine and just check if this machine is compliant against, of course, the database of Microsoft. And as we can see, we know that there's 4 updates that are missing on this machine. They are not critical. They are not related to security. They are part of what we call the others. And as you can see, it's just update for the machine, the operating system. It's you have an antivirus update. You have .NET framework update, and so on and so on. So imagine that you have deployed the agents on maybe 300, 500, 2,000 machines. It took just a couple of let's say minutes if you have a deployment solution, and just in a matter of minutes you have all that kind of data that will arrive centrally, and you will manage your server no matter if they are in Azure on-prem, Google, Amazon, exactly the same way based on policy. So that's the first experience that we wanted to show you on update management. If we go on the next slide, you will see quite a similar example. So now we are in what we call inventory. And inventory, just look at the machines and look at the registry, Windows services, files, and software. Files, in this example, by default, it's 0. You have to specify what type of file you would like to monitor. Otherwise, that would be, a lot of events. There's a tiny configuration, but for software and Windows services, the system will do the job. And again, once you have the data, it's very easy to have a report like, give me the list of my vendors on my 2000 machines, or give me per vendor the list of software that I am using, or give me per vendor and per software the list of versions that I have. You may, for example, see that you have 3 or 4 versions of a software like an antivirus or whatever product, or you will see free tools that usually could create some security holes and so on and so on. So it's extremely convenient. Once the data has arrived in Log Analytics database, you can pretty much crunch the data and extract any kind of information. So of course you have this GUI that you can see here, but of course the data is here, so you can also create what we call the workbooks, where you can gather different kind of queries and have your dedicated report based on what you want to do. So that's the second example on inventory, and the third one, which is also linked to inventory, is change tracking. So what is going on now is every time something like a product, like anything that will change something on your server, because there is a change, there is an event, the system will capture this event, will store this event, and will give you exactly what is going on your machine. So as you can see, we divide the screen in two. One is graphical. So the X, axis is the time, and of course, if you look the Y-axis, you have different kind of product that we want to track. So as you can see in this example, we had several Windows services changes, like maybe stop, start, or dates, whatever. And we had 2 software updates. And of course, if we go down, if we look at the bottom of the screenshot, we can of course get the result of what are these changes and so on and so on. So it's extremely convenient, especially if you have an attack and if you want to replay what is going on when we started to have some sort of intruders coming in the company. It's very interesting to gather this information, because we can keep them for a long period of time, almost forever, but it's interesting to have minimum of 3 months of such information in case of attack. So that's the third example. We can go to the next slide. And this is another one that I really like. We know that we have servers, we know that we have networks, we know that we have routers that can capture, SMB traffic and give us some statistics about, who's talking to what and so on and so on. But this component is even smarter because it's inside your machine. So it's in fact the agent that has been installed. It will track 2 things. One is the list of the processes that are executed by the machine. So you know that every time you run a service, you will get a process identifier. So when you stop the service and you restart again, you have another process identifier, and so on and so on. So on one hand, it will look at the process, and on the other hand, it will look at the network. So every time the TCP stack is creating a connection or stopping a connection or whatever, it also gathers this information. And what this product does, it will just link the 2 of them. So as a result of that, and this is very, very short demo, as you can see, we have our front-end 01 machine running 28 processes, talking in the backend with multiple servers. And you can see here the ports and so on and so on. So if it was a real demo, I could click the 28 processes and see the list. And automatically the links that you can see here on the screenshot will update. So if I click, for example, I don't know, Internet Explorer, I could see that Internet Explorer is in fact talking to machine A, B, C, and D. But I would see also the process that my source process is discussing with. So it creates some sort of map of your network. It's extremely interesting to see sometimes that it's misconfigured. I have many examples. It's not in a demo, but I can take that offline if you want, where configuration is not that good. It really helps to understand, how the system is breathing, how it's working, who is talking to what. And when you have migration scenarios, like I have a lot of servers, I want to move them somewhere else, for example, in Azure or another data center, it gives you some very, very nice insights about who is talking to what, so you can aggregate this kind of thing, and you will have a very, very, very interesting, data. So this service is called MAP, Network Map. Again, as soon as you say, I want to have that kind of data, once the new machine is enrolled in Arc, automatically all the config will go down and you will gather that kind of information. We can go to the next slide. This is another examples, and we mentioned that a little bit. Aleksey talked about the notion of policies. So what we have done and what is the value? My team, with Microsoft team, has created policies, so a list of rules that complies in one, aspect of the solutions. We also can gather many policies to have some sort of, bigger, vision, like ISO certification, PCI DSS, or I am a bank, or I am a financial institution. If you recall one of the slide that Aleksey used, you have seen, the FedRAMP logo or the UK NHS logo. So it's just a long list of prerequisites to be compliant with that policy. And once you say, I want all my machines to be compliant, then you can activate this policy. And again, the policy will arrive on the machine, will check maybe 200, configuration in this machine, and as a result of that, you will see who is compliant, who is not compliant, and so on and so on. So it's extremely convenient to have that policy-driven kind of vision, because at the end of the day, you know that all your machine, no matter where they are managed by the same policies. So that's the notion of policies. We can go to the next one. And then now we go a little bit deeper in security. So, security is pretty much two big phases. One is policies like install your machine correctly, update your machines, configure correctly your SQL, and so on and so on. So everything is in there. You have all the stats and all the configuration stuff. But then when it comes into looking at some other aspect, like deep dive configuration, more detailed configuration, and so on and so on, we have the notion of Microsoft Defender. So Microsoft Defender is really a big product that you deploy on your workstation. And by the way, you have 30 days evaluation for free. So I definitely, and Aleksey also recommend, when you run a POC, when you deploy the solution on your site and you want to evaluate Arc, at the end of the process, when you have a lot of machines with the Arc agent, because it's almost free, then deploy the solution, because for 30 days you will have a super killer product for nothing. You will pay nothing, and at the end of the day, you will have a lot of different access to see if you're compliant or not. I will not go everywhere, but you have Secure Score that will give you a trend. You will have SOC and PCI DSS, and as you can see, it's very interesting, because it will also look at if you're running these VMs in Amazon, how far are you from the recommendation of Amazon? If you're running this in Google, how far you are from Google recommendation. So it's not only Microsoft, but we also bring, the network layer underneath, and it works very well with Amazon and Google. And we just, download the recommendation of these guys, and we just double check if you are compliant. So maybe there's a bigger cost on that solution. It's a per month per machine for sure. You could say, for example, I target only my prod machine, but not the dev test. It's really, the flexibility of the solution is really there. It's not 100% cover or nothing, but it brings you a lot of information, and it would just gather a lot of different kind of information at the same time. So this is the Microsoft Defender, and again, as soon as you click the button, I need this component on Arc server machines. As soon as the machine arrives, being automatically it gets the info. We can go to the next one.
Yeah, just thinking about just question of time. And
Yeah.
Camila, how much time we have left? Because maybe we should skip some next slides of our demo and go straight to the
questions. Sure.
questions. Yes.
Yeah, okay, we have 8 minutes, so.
Okay, so we can go to the Q&A. So.
Yeah, Camila, will you read it to us?
Yeah, of course.
Maybe I will take just a minute before we go to the questions and answers. I would like to say, maybe emphasize. So we have we definitely cannot cover everything in 1 hour. Everything regarding Azure Arc, even if we just stick to one specific scenario of security and governance. But we have a wide variety of resources that you can use and you can leverage. Either you want just to learn more about Azure Arc, we have a technical documentation, we have a specific Azure Arc learning path, we have a Microsoft MVTD virtual training day for you. You can get started with specific resources available for you. And just recently, we also announced general availability of landing zone accelerator for Azure Arc. So there is a set of automation tools that can help you easily on board. And I also encourage you to take a look and check out our Jumpstart project, which provides multiple things from the different scenarios, specific technical scenarios that you can leverage and go off and just deploy it by yourself, or you can leverage demos and ArcBox, a sandbox environment that allows you to explore all the major capabilities of Azure Arc. So really, you can go and check out this resource. That will provide you much more information that we possibly can give you in the hour to hour, in this kind of meetup. So that would be all. And Camila, can you please walk us through the question that we have?
Yeah, of course. The first one is, what are the major differences between Azure Stack and Arc? Stack also supports hybrid cloud, right?
Absolutely. Let me take this question.
Sure.
All right. So these are I would say, even completely different products. So Azure Arc is a let's say component of Azure Cloud, public cloud, which enables you to connect on-premise and multi-cloud environment. Whether Azure Stack and specifically Azure Stack HCI, this is basically a hypervisor operating system that you can deploy on-premise and connect to the cloud. So this is just a portion of your hybrid cloud that you can deploy on your infrastructure. So normally these are appliances, hardware appliances with pre-installed Azure Stack HCI operating system that you can deploy, and that supports natively integration with Azure Arc that supports natively capabilities of Azure Kubernetes services that you can run on Azure Stack HCI.
Yeah, and maybe we can add on top that if you want to run virtual machine on your private network, Azure Stack is an option because it's a Windows bundled and boosted with Azure that you install on your hardware, as Aleksey just said. But the cool thing is that from Microsoft, from the Microsoft perspective, then your hardware in your data center is considered as Azure. So you will get for free all the updates if you have very old machine like 2008, SQL 2008, what we call the ESU. It's going to be free. If it's VMware, you have to pay. And also there's a lot of services in Azure that are free in Azure that you need to pay outside of Azure. So these services will be also free. So it's an opportunity to replace some other hypervisor with it pre-installed, pre-configured, and again boosted with the cloud. If you want to run stuff on your on-prem, it goes for Hyper-V, but it also can run other Azure services like AKS or some other components like that. So it's a very interesting scenario. It's not that complex to install. Either it's pre-installed by the hardware vendor like Dell, HP, whatever, or you can install yourself on your own hardware, and then you can run your stuff on your private network. Does it clarify the question?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Really good comment. Thank you.
Money. Sometimes it's interesting to also emphasize that we save some money if we go this way.
We have 4 more questions. Why should I choose Arc compared to AWS Outposts, EKS Anywhere, or Google Anthos?
I can take this one if you want.
Do you want? Yes. Yeah.
Yes, well, even before answering, you need to understand that Microsoft has a hybrid story, right? The other friend don't have hybrid. So we used to start, selling Windows, SQL, Exchange, SharePoint, System Center, and all that kind of stuff. Then we had the cloud, so we became a hybrid. We sell on-prem and we sell also in Azure. And then you mentioned Azure Arc. We can take Azure and put it back on your private network, and it's called Azure Stack, right? So we have a very, very strong story, and we have a stronger story than our friend in the other cloud, because we have that experience. I mean, Amazon and Google are born in the cloud. They need to have solution, for example, for Kubernetes, because of course they want to provide stuff, at this level. But the range of solutions is definitely wider on top of Arc. So I would suggest to evaluate Arc against the others, and you will see that there's multiple scenarios that we only have the scenarios at Microsoft, like you mentioned the security product and all that kind of stuff, that we don't necessarily have that. And the second one is we are Windows. We have the company that has created Windows, so I think we have the strongest product for Windows and Microsoft product, of course. But believe me, I've done a lot of tests with Linux with very, very, very strong, customer. This product works absolutely great also on Linux when it comes to management and security. So I think we definitely have a very, very strong offer in this one.
I would only maybe comment a bit. So as far as I remember, Anthos and Google were very focused on the Kubernetes and clusters. So yes, they now they support virtual machines as well, but like we know that their strategy for the long period of time were to be focused very really on Kubernetes. Whereas in case of Azure Arc, like we understand that all these resource matters. I mean, we really open to support as wide range of resources as we can. And another one distinguishing feature that we have, that we really brings these resources and we treat them as a part of Azure. So there is almost no difference between Azure Arc enabled virtual machine and Azure virtual machine. And so you will see them like difference were very minor. Maybe in many cases only icon what distinguishes between Azure Arc enabled machine and Azure virtual machine, which is not in case of Google and Amazon. And for Amazon, I would say Outpost is just extension of AWS. So this is very different approach. I mean, in case of Amazon, what you will have, you can extend your AWS cloud footprint with your on-premise AWS. So just have the same on your data center. So you just have to maintain the appliance in your data center. In our case, we want to bring all it together, right? Really doesn't matter whether you're GCP, AWS, like we support it, and we understand you want to run it. We want to integrate, and our approach is, you can have it, you can manage it in one single place, and really we support different clouds, different on-premise hypervisors. So this is our strategy, and I believe this is our key point in this case.
Thank you. For the next question, can you please, Ágoston, clarify your question a little bit? Maybe we can skip that for now. What other services and features will be added to Azure Arc in the future?
Well, this is a very good question because, yeah, I will take this one. So Azure Arc is a quite new solution actually, and some of the things, were in public review just previously. So, which means that there are definitely will be more and more Azure services extensions brought to on-premise. What we know for sure that those services that are in public preview right now will be in general availability, such as Postgres managed instance that you can deploy on your Kubernetes service, and machine learning data services running on Kubernetes on your site will be in general availability. And well, I cannot promise anything at this moment, but like I suggest really to follow our news and check what new services are brought. But definitely will be more. Definitely will be more. And even today we have wide variety of application services and platform services that wasn't able just recently on Azure Arc. Just check out. Maybe you already will see something new. Maybe Frederic, if you want add anything.
No, just one example of the last update that we had, which is the VMware support. So of course, you could deploy the agent on any kind of VMs running on VMware, no problem. But the last update we had is the support of the VMware stack. So it means that you can go in Azure, say, I want to have a new machine on my VMware server on the other side of the planet. So there's some sort of integration. So the way I see Arc is that the bridge is there. So now it's just a matter of how many things we can send on the other side. Sometimes, the product is, very easy to be deployed on the other side, but sometimes we need to fine tune a little bit, the configuration. And so, as Aleksey said, we're investing a lot on the technologies that could be sent on the other side by, by containers most of the time. And sometimes it needs some tweaking. So it's not really the Arc itself. It's just the tweaking of the way we can inject on the other side, solution. And VMware is a good example when it took some time and only some specific version of VMware would be supported because, of course, we need an API. We need to be able to do something with the agent. So that is a little bit more, the services on top of Arc rather than Arc itself that will evolve in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I may also add something, so we can take a look at two perspectives, like what kind of services, Azure services you can inject to Arc-enabled infrastructure and resources on the one hand. On the other hand, the range of resources that we support that can be onboarded, and the brilliant case that the brilliant example that Frederic brought here is the support of VMware stack. And there is one thing that we are really, and many people I know, really waiting for is the lifecycle management for Kubernetes through Azure Arc. It is not yet available, but this is something we are really, really waiting for. So I think this is another example. So the capabilities, that wide range of supported thing can support the scenarios, how we can manage it.
Yeah.
Thanks. So yeah, Ágoston clarified his question.
Yeah.
From a business continuity perspective, how problematic is to maintain control over the different servers if Azure Arc is not available?
Yeah.
And meaning by if it's deployed and not available for some reason.
Yeah. So in fact, again, the bridge is created. We inject on the other side the service like monitoring and so on and so on. So if the Arc, for any kind of reason, is broken, we have a failure in the product, we just don't care. You will not get new updates like there's no policy, or I will not be able to push again some new services on the server. But the one that are running will continue to work, like monitoring or health and security and so on and so on, because each component is talking to Azure directly. There's not one single, tunnel that we create and everything has to go through this tunnel. Each component just work the way it works. So if you had, manually deployed the solution like log analytics, we will go, HTTPS connection and we'll talk to the server. So maybe the big question is what happens if everything goes down, like I lost my internet connection, whatever. Then all the agent will just log the information locally. I have no idea of how many megs or gigs, it would be able to store. We can dig in, for example, in log analytics, but that's the way it would work. Arc will not be a blocker. Arc is not, concentrating everything. It's just, again, a bridge and a remote control. If the bridge is broken, we still have people who can work on both sides of the bridge. And once, the bridge is back, then we can send again some configuration and stuff like that. So see Arc as just a bridge and a remote control.
Thank you. And the last question is, how is performance, information processing, and information transfer with Arc? Usually it is quite slow with this architecture.
So again, Arc is not transferring data, except the configuration and make sure that the policy-driven vision is compliant, right? So if you change this config, and it will be sent a few minutes later. If I take the example of the SQL security component, for example, we know that this component just scan your server once per week, for example. So it's really per product that you have to think about it. So again, Arc will not be in single point of failure, will not be a VPN tunnel. Once it's deployed, it's fine. And if you look, for example, at log analytics, which is the component that will gather most of the events, like performance counter, map, and all that kind of thing, I have never seen any kind of impact on the CPU, frankly, first. And second, the amount of data that is transferred is really based on your config. So I also lost the connection. Sorry, I don't know what happened. We had
I believe we are all working it off.
Okay, so yeah, again, it really depends on the agent. And so yes, I was about to say, please, when you deploy such solution, don't ask the agent to gather anything and upload anything, like all the Windows events, all the information events, because it's going to be a huge amount of data gathered, which is not a problem for the agent, but it's going to cost you a lot of money for nothing. So what we do is really we clearly update the configuration to make sure that we gather the right data that has a value for the company.
Thank you very much. That was our last question. If anybody has any more questions, you can just ask them via the meetup group. And I think that's it. Do you guys have anything to add maybe to this event?
Thanks. And if you have any question, ping us.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
yeah,
you.
we will happy to take it offline. And yes, if you have any questions, we'll get you covered, of course.
Thank you very much for attending, and thank you everyone for joining. I'm sure we all found today's presentations very useful. Thank you again. See you soon.
Yes, thank you, Camille, and thank everyone for attending. Yes.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.